You're listening to our PAC Politics podcast. Our podcast is brought to you by our United Resource PAC. We are a tax-exempt political organization. I'm your host, Brittany McDowell, and thank you for joining me this Monday morning. Guys, we are seeing a slowing of the economic recovery without the receiving of a new stimulus package. That said, the question I want to ask you today is if you heard what the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago President Charles Evans said about our failure to receive a new stimulus package, our failure to be stimulated again. He said something that's definitely worth noting, and I'm going to dedicate today's show to talking about what he talked about. So this shouldn't be too long of a show. Sit back, pay attention. Not too much to cover, but some very important stuff nonetheless. So let's go ahead. Let's jump right in. And again, you're listening to our PAC Politics podcast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so it is not just apparent to Americans such as yourself and myself that we need more economic stimulus. At this point, the Fed is talking about, matter of fact, they have been talking about for some time, our need for more stimulus. But what we got today from the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, the President Charles Evans, he made a statement today. And that statement, in so many words, was that without us seeing stimulus come from the White House as well as Congress, what we are going to end up seeing is a reignition of recessionary dynamics. So what that means is we are going to see dynamics come into play that essentially are going to lead to a recession. Some people might make the argument that we are already there. Some people I've seen online have gone so far as to describe our current state as depression level. But coming directly again from the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago President Charles Evans, at this point, what he is seeing is a situation in which we are not necessarily in the place of recession, but we will certainly continue headed towards the path of recession and the dynamics that lead to recession if we indeed don't see stimulus. And as a result of that, if you ask the question, well, gee, what's so wrong with that? You know, we've been through a recession before and we made it out okay. The problem with that is that it essentially is going to hinder our recovery. Obviously, we know what the recovery is from, you know, just how many of us, including our president, are looking to recover from coronavirus. Our economy is also in the process of recovering from coronavirus. Some people might say it's in the process of recovering, and some people, when they look at their own personal situations, they would say they're not anywhere near recovery. But we'll just go ahead and say that we're in recovery nonetheless. So again, on Monday, this is when we heard this information come from Charles Evans, and he said, and I'm going to quote directly, he said that another economic rescue package will play an enormously powerful role in helping struggling households and businesses make it through the coronavirus pandemic until it's under control. So he lays out very clearly why more stimulus is needed. He didn't say anything about, we want to bail out state and local governments. And he didn't say, he made it about the people. He made it about the fact that not just people need money, but businesses need money. Now, you could make the argument, well, if you just kind of help businesses, it'll help people keep jobs. But it's becoming very apparent, if there's ever been a time where people have been able to clearly see the effects of kind of trickle-down economics, all you have to do is look at the recent administration of the PPP program, right? We saw that, obviously you had the unemployment extension the extended unemployment benefits that were given to unemployed individuals, that $600 per week on top of their state benefits. But you also saw, the $1,200 check that most Americans received, but those forms of stimulus ran out well before the funding for the PPP ran out. And when we were in the situation where the funding for the PPP was still in play, when those other forms of stimulus had all but depleted themselves, that was the point at which you could clearly look at and see the effects of trickle down economics. Well, what do I mean? We had money going to businesses, and the businesses essentially didn't, in so many words, have consumers. I have seen people online make the argument that, well, obviously there were consumers because you just have to look at the stock market. The stock market has been having record highs. Well, guys, the stock market at this point is so detached from the consumer. I'd go so far as to say that the stock market is not really an accurate representation of your average everyday consumer. What we had seen, one of the main reasons why stocks were at a record high was given the bailout that the stock market received, right? Given what the federal government had done in terms of the stock market. It was not a result of people going out and I saw one person saying, well, Tesla, they were doing so well, and da 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 da, and I don't want to go into specifics. I don't want to make this about the stock market, but again, it wasn't necessarily because everyone out there was buying a Tesla. It wasn't because everyone was out there, now in some cases you could make the case, well, you know what, I'm not going to get into that economic argument, but anywho, nonetheless, if you ever wanted to kind of see the effects of trickle-down economics, look at what we saw recently with the PPP and its administration. We recently had the time pass, which kind of the date that was set in stone for the October 1st date for businesses to essentially keep their employees on payroll. That day has come and gone. Look at the airlines, look at Walt Disney. That what happened on October 1st? Hey, we're going to have to let 20,000 people go. We're going to have to let, and it was all because, yes, the government gave them money, the government bailed them out, but it was either a situation where people either did not have the money to go and to spend, or they may have had the money, but again, dealing with the pandemic, people don't feel safe. Most people. Now, you have people out there who, don't acknowledge the reality in which we live, who think that this is nothing more than just a cold or a flu, who think that you can drink bleach and be okay, who think that, a cup of chicken noodle soup will do the body good and you'll be back to business as normal. For some people, this may be the equivalent of a cold or a flu in terms of the severity of their illness if they contract COVID-19. But this thing is killing people. This thing is highly contagious. I was reading, I found myself online. I find myself online all the time, right? And, we talk about the fact that the mortality rate with COVID-19 is approximately 1%. Let's kind of let's examine that kind of 1% and put that in perspective. If, let's say, for instance, we applied that 1% fatality rate to flights. If 1% of flights had a fatality rate every day, roughly 1,000 flights would be falling out the sky every day. 1,000 flights. How many of you would be out there riding planes like it's nothing? Now, some of you may be suicidal. I hope not. If you are, please get some help. But most people who think they have a reason to live, they would not feel comfortable. Excuse me. I did not edit that out. If you've seen the news this morning, you might kind of understand what that kind of is in reference to. The fact that I coughed and I didn't edit it out because someone coughed, but they did edit it out. I'm not going to get into that. But so anywho, let's turn back to the Fed. Sometimes I find myself kind of going off. But so guys, the gist of what Charles Evans said today is that we need not just stimulus, but he used the very word that I have been using, and that is sufficient stimulus. Again, I've used the example several times of having a house that is on fire. If we look at the two sides, the Democrats and the Republicans, and what they want to do to put out the fire that is blazing through this country, one party wants to take a bucket of water, a single bucket of water, because they want to conserve water to put out a raging fire. Okay? Now, they could just genuinely believe that that's enough water, or they could understand that it's not enough water, but they want to use the water for other stuff. Maybe they want to use water to bake their cakes. They want to use water to take their nice baths after a stressful day. I don't know. But then you have another party that sees the fire, the same fire, but they understand that a single bucket of water is not going to be sufficient enough to actually extinguish the flames, to address the problem. And this is why, again, I have said it's not just a matter of saying, well, sure, we'll throw $1 trillion at the problem. It is not sufficient. For those that I've mentioned several times, I am not by any means a Nancy Pelosi cheerleader. I have so many different disagreements with that woman on various issues. But what I am willing to do as an American, as someone who recognizes the severity of the issue that we're facing right now, I recognize that on this issue, while Nancy Pelosi, in my opinion, is wrong on many, 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 many things, it's an ever-growing list, she is not wrong on this issue of stimulus. Now, is what she proposed perfect? No. Does it have a lot of pork? No. Excuse me. Yes, a lot of pork. But what it does do is it does sufficiently meet the needs of what we need to meet. So bringing that back to Charles Evans, he said, and I quote, that we need sufficient stimulus. And that sufficient stimulus, get this, it does include support for state and local governments, because like you can't have sufficient stimulus while helping businesses and even helping people, but not helping your state and local governments. Now, do we make it a windfall for them? No. But do we also give them a nickel or a quarter and say, hey, it is what it is, do what you do? We can't do that. That's not sufficient. Not at all. So anyone who would tell you that either we don't need funding for state and local governments or they can survive on the bare minimum, they're not looking to make this sufficient. And that's what you need to question. When we hear these numbers, especially as the negotiations are taking place, and we hear, we're actually seeing the breakdowns that are supposed to be allocated towards different programs and such, ask yourself, is this sufficient? Now, I know for most of us, these numbers are so large, we can't really grasp how large the numbers are. But then on top of that, we're not really clear of, of knowing, we're not really clear on knowing if a certain amount is sufficient. What I would ask you to do, and this is kind of one of those things where, hey, don't go off of me, don't go off of politicians, go off of you and your own research. Look at these amounts that they are saying that they need. One of the great things about government programs is that you can find out about the money that they have had and that they have used. That money is that information is readily available to the general public for the most part. So if they're saying, hey, we want to allocate X amount of funding for X program X, Y, and Z, take it upon yourself to research the amount of funding that the program recently had, that state recently had, whatever the case was, and see how its performance was, either with an amount that was more than that or less, whatever that amount was. Let's say, for instance, they say, well, this is just a hypothetical situation, hypothetical, type deal. We're going to allocate, $1 million to FEMA. Go and look at the typical funding that FEMA has whether it be, I mean, I would say look at maybe their most recent annual for funding levels, but look at that and say, okay, well, typically they've had before, just say $3 million. They had way more than $3 million. And again, this is just a hypothetical, just for the sake of this example. They had $3 million before, and they're saying that they only want to give them $1 million. Consider one, that's well under what they normally would have as their operating budget, but then consider as well that in the times in which we live, their needs, their financial needs, their financial obligations are a lot higher. Simply as a matter of safety, simply as a matter of trying to keep people safe. So do the research for yourself. Don't just count on Nancy or Mitch or Mark or Steve or anybody. Or heck, don't even wait for Charles Evans to tell you these funding levels are appropriate. Research that for yourself, because that information is available. But again, point of it is, at least we have this Federal Reserve president out of Chicago stating that what we need is sufficient stimulus. That should include support for state and local governments. And essentially, he stated, if we do get that, and I'm giving you the exact numbers, if we do get, and he didn't, to the best of my knowledge, he didn't say exactly what those funding levels were, but he did say if we did get sufficient funding that included funding for state and local governments, what we should get an unemployment rate that should fall from 7.9% as of last month to 4% by 2023. Now, I will tell you, and just to kind of end this here right now, I don't necessarily believe these unemployment numbers. I believe wholeheartedly with every fiber in my being, every bone in my body, that the unemployment numbers are way higher than what is being reported. All you have to do, for instance, is look at a couple of months ago where they actually changed how the unemployment numbers were calculated and who would actually be counted. And gee, what do you know? That next set of numbers that came out, dramatically lower, but nothing had changed within the economy. Benefits at that point had actually been cut, but things got better. I don't believe it. Now, again, don't take my word for it. Research it for yourself. But again, point of it is here, we do have the Fed talking about our need for more stimulus. Regardless of what anybody tells you at this point, what you need to know is that our economic recovery is slowing down. The pace of our economic recovery has slowed down, and it's very clear why. We have seen, obviously, everybody knows, back in July, we saw the expiration of the federal extended unemployment benefits. Some people to that will counter that the President Donald Trump, he had signed the executive order giving that $300 per week to individuals. For starters, that was only half of what they previously received. But then on top of that, you have states that to this day still have not paid any of those funds to people. Some states will not pay those funds until the end of this month. Some states have depleted those funds. Some states are in the process of currently paying those funds. One state in particular has declined those funds altogether. But this is not a situation in which we have seen a kind of a robust rollout of that assistance to the general public. And so as a result of that, we can't expect to see, when we look at the data, we can't expect to see indications of that support because it's too spaced out. Some people received some for a few weeks, others for another, few weeks. It wasn't a situation where everyone got it, just say in the month of August. Everyone got it in the month of September, and then we can look at the data the next, from that next month, from that following month, to kind of see the impact of the rollout. That's not possible because it's too spaced out. The administration of it it's not anything that would really be seen when you look at the data, at least in any sufficient way. So, when we consider the fact that aid has stopped again, not just with the unemployment benefits, but we've seen the aid stop with the PPP, we've seen the aid stop, with various forms of stimulus. Um, we are also in a situation where, believe it or not, we're seeing the virus COVID-19 continuing to spread. And actually, when we look at the South and the Sun Belt, and even some of the northern and midwestern states, we've seen some surges in the spread of the virus, and it's, I mean, quite frankly, when you look at kind of the termination of restrictions in those areas, or the kind of expeditious move to kind of move past having restrictions, it's not really surprising. But in the words of the president, it is what it is, right? But when you couple the fact that aid has stopped with the fact that we are seeing a surge in the virus, and then I'd even go so far as to say, we're technically in fall, and when we consider what the experts, what the scientists and the medical professionals say about us going through fall and moving into winter, we are going to expect surges in regards to COVID-19. And so all of this stuff is kind of making for just this perfect storm where our economic recovery is slowing. Some people have noted, just the fact that the president and him contracting the virus is kind of creating an increased sense of urgency to strike up a deal regarding the stimulus package before Election Day. Quite frankly, I don't know how I feel about that. I've said before that at this point, when we failed to see successful negotiations after Nancy Pelosi proposed kind of the skinny bill from the House, it really kind of solidified within me that we more likely than not would not see stimulus until the election. I quite frankly don't know if the president contracting COVID-19 moves my opinion on that. Again, some people are saying that it absolutely does. You even have people such as Nancy Pelosi kind of making that statement, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. So I can't kind of give you, with certainty an opinion that I have on it, because I just don't know. I would hope that it would, but at the same time, if various other things that have occurred that have directly impacted the American people, the constituents of these Republicans and of these politicians, if that stuff did not move them, if the fact that their homelessness was increasing, if the fact that people were unable to feed their children, if the fact that their constituents were dying at record rates and contracting the virus at record rates did not really move them, I'm not quite sure how one more individual would move them, despite the fact of this person's title. I don't know. Like I said, I hold out for hope that it would, but kind of my gut instinct says no. It says no. And if I had to kind of put a number on it, I'm probably like, I don't know. I'm probably like 75-80% sure that we still will not see a stimulus package until after the election. And even then, I don't mean like right after the election. I mean January, and that just depends on who holds the Senate and who the president is. So that's kind of my take on things. That considered, yes, you have people such as the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, saying that, Trump, President Trump contracting the virus should definitely lead to us moving towards a stimulus. A new sense of urgency should be created. But here's the deal. In the Senate, the Republicans there, they have continued. This has always been the case, but they haven't moved on their expression of concern regarding approving a stimulus package that is anything more than $1 trillion. Their main concern is the national debt. Again, let's go back to this example that I use of a house on fire and one person wanting to use a single bucket of water to extinguish the fire, and one person wanting to use a hose to use as much water as is necessary to completely extinguish the flames. The question I pose is, why on other emergencies do we not hear about the debt? We hear, for instance, in areas that are prone to earthquakes or areas that are prone to tornadoes or now prone to fire due to due to global warming. Why do we not hear, especially, it boggles my mind, for instance, with the areas that are like in a tornado alley. Why is it that we don't hear about the national debt when we want to allocate federal funds to people who make the choice, for whatever reason, to live in a place that is prone to getting tornadoes? Why do we not hear about the national debt then? Why do we not hear about the fact that, hey, well, they made that choice. It's all about personal responsibility. And I'm not blaming these people. I'm just kind of using this as an example. People that live in high crime areas where we have to repeatedly, utilize police. Why do we not say, hey, the national debt, we can't afford to keep sending police in these areas that are high crime, personal responsibility? They should have known better. They should have prepared to be in a place that was high crime. We've come once, we can't afford to come anymore. The places that are prone to flooding or hurricanes, why do we not say, hey, federal funding, national debt? I promise you, if I don't hear any of these, namely Senate Republicans, say that they are concerned about the national debt, next time we get a hurricane, when they have their hands out begging for federal money, I'm going to have a problem. I have a problem with it now. National debt. Why don't you care? Why are you only selective? Does the national debt not matter when you need the money? Of course it doesn't. Let me close with this. Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, he has said before, and he is still saying, that there is not really much support within his Republican conference for another massive stimulus bill. He already knows it. I've reported on that before. He's made it very, very clear. Again, we have about 20 or so Republicans hard and fast in the Senate that said, again, pretty much in so many words, they don't want to spend another red nickel, dime, or cent. And even the ones that do want to spend, who are willing to spend, they are not willing to come above $1 trillion. Their own leader is saying this. So yes, I understand Nancy Pelosi is hopeful, and she hopes that the president recently contracting COVID-19 really has made an impact on some people and really has pulled at their hearts strings and really kind of moved their mind in the direction of understanding. But their own leader is admitting that is not the case. So yes, let's ask and pray for hope and change, but we need to be realistic. And again, taking this back to my thoughts on our likelihood of getting stimulus before the election at this point, don't hold your breath. Do not hold your breath. As I told somebody else who said they're tired of holding their breath, I told them, don't hold your breath, because if you keep holding your breath, you are going to pass out. Are you on Facebook? We're on Facebook. Check out our Facebook page in the description box of this episode. We have our blog posts, we share our latest episodes, we share relevant information related to COVID-19 economic stimulus and relief. Again, we do it all on our Facebook page. Check it out in the description box of this episode. See you there. Hey, this is Brittany. Just wanted to shoot you a quick reminder. Look in the description box of this episode and you can find a link to our website. On our website, you can find our latest blog posts. You can find our contact information. You even want to make a contribution, you can go over there and do that as well. You can find out the policies we are looking at and targeting as an organization. You know, I say all the time that we are a tax-exempt political organization. If you want to know more about that, again, go on over to our website, our-pac.com, where you can find out everything you want to know. You can do everything you want to do. We will gladly welcome you on our website with open arms. Again, check out our website in the description box below. All right, guys and gals, that is our show for today, Monday, October 5th. Guys, again, our economic recovery is not only forecasted to slow down without the receiving and passage of more economic stimulus, it's already actively happening. We are already seeing the slowdown. The Fed has gone so far, not just with the Fed Reserve Bank of Chicago President Charles Evans, but we've had other members of the Fed actually speak out about the need for stimulus. And so, again, this is not just some situations where, as some people would like to frame it, Americans and states are just looking for bailouts and handouts. This is a situation where we actively need it. This is a situation where when you look at having a lack of stimulus and its impact, it is very, very clear that if we are going to get through this as expeditiously as is needed and wanted by pretty much every politician out there, it is going to take economic stimulus. Can we make it through COVID-19 without economic stimulus? Like, is it possible? Is it, yeah, sure we could, but it will be something that will go on a lot longer than is needed, and it will hurt more people than is needed. Why drag this out? Why not just take care of it now? Now, will providing stimulus make this all go away in one day? No. But fewer people will be hurt. Fewer children will be on the streets. More schools will be able to open. More parents will be able to go back to work. More cities will see their commercial spaces be able to be leased again. More restaurants will open. We'll see more of a correlation between reality and the stock market than we're seeing right now. But we need stimulus to make it happen. So that is our show for today. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a good Monday. I hope you have a good rest of the week. As I always say, be sure to wear your hazmat suit because it is not safe out there. I had seen the unfortunate statement where someone said, if our president can get COVID-19, anyone can. Well, I hate to break it to you. COVID-19 does not care that the president has it. It's unfortunate that he has it, yes. But regular Americans have been getting it every day. I personally have known 17 people who have had COVID-19. Luckily, none of them have died. And you could attribute, some people might say, well, see, it's not as severe as people think. No, I wouldn't say that. I would just say that, they, most of them caught it. They became aware of it really early, and they understood the severity of it. So they sought out medical help really early on. Is that always a guarantee that people will pull through? No. But it does speak to the fact that we have to be vigilant. We have to understand that this is real, no matter who gets it. As of this morning, I've heard of 9 additional people within the Trump administration who have contracted COVID-19. It is very sad. I wish them all a speedy recovery. But again, COVID-19 is real, and it can come for any of us. So you need to understand that this is real. This is not a hoax. This is not something that, the Democrats just put out there, or this is real. This is real life. And you don't want to be that person trying to convince other people that this is real because one of your family members have died. As fortunate as I have been to know 17 people who have pulled through okay, we can all see those stories on Google of those families who have had, what I read recently, like 6 people in one family in the span of a month and a half just died. If you can afford not to be that story, if you can afford not to be either that person dead or telling the story of your loved ones dead, do everything you can to make that not so. And if your life is so miserable, if you think you have nothing to live for, where you were okay and you actually wish to get the virus, please get help. Please understand that your personal freedom to decide whether or not you want to wear a mask or sanitize your hands, it's bigger than just you. Because while you and your immune system may make it through, you may expose other people who might have a weaker immune system, or who they might make it through, but they get it and then they expose someone else who doesn't have as great of an immune system. And you do not have that right. You don't have the right. Frankly, you're out there mass murdering people potentially, and you should be locked up like everybody else who commits mass murder. So, be safe, wear your hazmat suit, take this seriously. Have a good week. I will see you Wednesday. I doubt that at any point this week, whether it's Wednesday or Friday, we'll be having a conversation about the passage of a stimulus bill, some people would like to say. But as I've said to the other person, don't hold your breath, because if you do, you will pass out.